It was a scorching summer afternoon and the house felt quieter than usual, the kind of silence that seemed to creep into every corner and settle there, heavy and unrelenting. I stood in the kitchen absently chopping fruits for a refreshing salad, my thoughts wandering as they often did these days. The faint hum of the ceiling fan above me was the only sound breaking the stillness. My husband was away as usual. His demanding job had long since become the third presence in our marriage, a silent competitor that always seemed to win. I had grown accustomed to the long hours, the empty evenings, and the loneliness that accompanied them. I had built routines around his absence, simple rituals like preparing meals, tending to the house, and finding solace in small quiet moments. Yet today felt different. The air carried an odd weight, as if something unseen and unspoken lingered just beneath the surface. I was startled out of my thoughts when Jason, my 21-year-old stepson, walked into the kitchen unexpectedly. His presence had always been easygoing, a breath of fresh air in an otherwise predictable household. Over the years, I had come to think of him as a part of my family, someone I genuinely cared for. Yet lately, I couldn't ignore the subtle shifts in his behavior, the fleeting glances, the way his voice softened when he spoke to me, and the tension that seemed to arise in his presence. "Hey, need any help?" Jason asked, his voice casual, though there was an edge to it, hesitation, perhaps, or something more. He glanced at the cutting board in front of me, his eyes flickering briefly to mine before lingering there just a second too long. I smiled and handed him a knife, hoping to diffuse the strange energy I felt in the room. "Sure, you can start with the cantaloupe." He nodded, stepping closer to stand beside me as he began slicing. I noticed his hands were steady at first, but grew less so as the moments passed. We worked silently, but the air between us seemed to crackle with an unspoken tension. At one point, our hands brushed as I reached for a bowl, and he froze, pulling back quickly and muttering an apology. "It's fine," I said lightly, forcing a smile and pretending not to notice. Yet inwardly, I couldn't ignore the sudden awareness of him that had settled over me like an unwelcome guest. As we worked, I caught him stealing glances at me, his gaze darting away each time I turned toward him. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there, a hesitation, a quiet pull. The room felt smaller, the air thicker, as if the walls themselves were closing in. When we finally finished preparing the salad, I slid it onto the counter and broke the silence. "Looks like we're all set." Jason nodded, his face flushed as though embarrassed by something he couldn't quite articulate. He lingered for a moment, shifting his weight from one foot to the other, before mumbling something about needing to make a phone call and leaving the room. I stood there alone, staring at the empty doorway. The interaction replayed in my mind like a broken record. I told myself it was nothing, just a fleeting moment of awkwardness. Jason was young, perhaps shy or preoccupied with his own thoughts, but deep down, I knew better. His glances, the accidental touches, the unsteady tone of his voice, it all felt deliberate, even if he hadn't intended it to. That evening, as I sat on the couch waiting for my husband to return, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between Jason and me. It was faint, like a shadow moving just out of sight, but it was there. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't ignore it. Jason's voice cracked as he spoke. "What happened?" "It was a mistake, I know that, but I can't stop thinking about it." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "Jason, we can't do this. We can't let it happen again. It's not just wrong, it could ruin everything, your father, our family." My voice trailed off as the weight of the situation settled over me. Jason looked away, his jaw tightening. "I know. I don't want to hurt anyone. I just..." He paused, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know how to stop feeling this way." I stood up, creating some distance between us. "You have to try. We both do. This, whatever it is, it ends here." He nodded slowly, but his expression didn't change. "I get it. I'll stay out of your way." "Jason, it's not about avoiding each other," I said softly. "It's about boundaries, respect, and making sure this family stays intact." He looked up at me, his eyes filled with a mix of regret and longing. "I understand," he said, though his voice was laced with hesitation. The following days were tense. Jason kept his word and stayed distant, but the unspoken emotions lingered in the air. Every glance, every accidental encounter, felt loaded with meaning. One evening, as I sat in the living room with my husband, Jason walked in and announced that he'd be spending more time at his mom's place. "I think it'll be good for me to focus on school and be closer to campus," he explained, avoiding eye contact. My husband nodded, completely unaware of the underlying reasons. "That sounds like a good plan, son. Let me know if you need anything." I forced a smile, relieved and yet conflicted. Jason's decision was the right one, but the tension within me hadn't fully subsided. As Jason packed his things over the next few days, I couldn't help but feel a sense of finality, a bittersweet end to something that should never have started. When he left, he gave me a brief nod, his eyes holding a silent apology. Life slowly returned to normal, but the memories of those moments lingered in the back of my mind, a constant reminder of the thin line between right and wrong. I poured myself into rebuilding the stability of my family, vowing never to let such a situation arise again. Yet, in the quiet moments when I was alone with my thoughts, I couldn't help but wonder how something so fleeting could leave such a lasting impact.